Okay, this is a complicated one, and therefore long, so please bear with me. My ex-husband, let's call him Chad, was emotionally and sometimes physically abusive. We have 2 kids together, and co-parenting has been a nightmare, even after I remarried and had another child. He's manipulative, controlling, and just an all-around toxic human being. My dad owns several rental properties. Some were purchased while I was married to Chad, some after we divorced. These houses were always seen as an investment by my dad for his family, and as he says, generational wealth. He always talked about leaving houses for his 3 kids in his will. Well, he currently co-owns 6 of these properties, 50-50 with Chad. This makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Here's the core issue. My dad wants a relationship with me now, but he refuses to acknowledge the horrific abuse I endured at Chad's hands. He refuses to cut ties with Chad, despite knowing some of the details. This makes both me and my current husband incredibly nervous and uncomfortable. It feels like a complete betrayal, and honestly, it's baffling. Here's the kicker. Chad makes my dad money. Money my dad is currently living off of. Clearly, the concept of generational wealth is lost on him. Meanwhile, I have 0 financial ties to my dad. I don't give him money, and I certainly don't take any from him. Chad, on the other hand, only partners with my dad because my dad has the capital to fund these real estate deals. Chad, being a contractor, handles the renovations. They then split the profits 50-50. So, my dad fronts the cash, takes all the risk, and doesn't even recoup his initial investment, while Chad gets richer off the deal. And to add insult to injury, Chad doesn't pay a dime in child support from this income, because it's all conveniently in my dad's name, so it didn't count as Chad's income during our divorce. It's a truly messed up situation. To make matters worse, during my very difficult and abusive divorce, my dad, knowing some of the things Chad did, actually told me he was praying for me and Chad to reconcile. This is the kind of man my dad is. More concerned with appearances and what certain circles of his Christian community think than with the actual reality of the situation and the well-being of his own daughter. And it gets worse. It's not just a business relationship. My dad and Chad actually socialize. They hang out, church, lunches, dinners, birthday parties, the whole 9 yards. My dad's excuse? They never talk about me. Which frankly, I find incredibly hard to believe. Even if they aren't actively gossiping about me, the very fact that my dad chooses to spend time with my abuser, to share meals and celebrate milestones with him, speaks volumes. It sends a clear message that his comfort and his financial interests are more important than my well-being and my peace of mind. It feels like he's choosing Chad over me, over and over again. I've tried to have conversations with him about this. I've tried to explain how his continued relationship with Chad and his refusal to acknowledge the abuse is hurting me. I've explained how it makes me feel unsafe and unsupported, but he just brushes it off, saying things like, "You need to forgive and forget," or "I don't want to get involved." So here's where I might be the a-hole. I've set a boundary. I've told my dad that I cannot have a relationship with him until he severs all business ties with Chad and ensures that Chad no longer has any financial interest in any of the properties, acknowledges the abuse I suffered, and stops minimizing it or trying to force me to reconcile with my abuser, even after the fact. I also told him that until these things are addressed, I want nothing to do with his will. I don't want any potential inheritance to be used as a tool for Chad to try to contact me or manipulate me in the future. Am I being unreasonable? Am I the a-hole for setting these boundaries? I feel like I have no other choice. I need to protect myself, my husband, and my children from Chad's influence. But I also feel incredibly sad and conflicted. I love my dad, but I can't tolerate this any longer. I feel like the daughter-in-law that divorced his son. Help me, Reddit. Am I the bad guy for protecting myself? Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Not the a-hole. Just out of curiosity, what are you siblings and family saying about his continued involvement? Are you getting any support there? Original poster replied, "It's a really long, complicated story, but not really. My sister is also friends with Chad. My brother hates Chad, but we don't really talk because his wife and I don't get along since my divorce. This is a really, really long story that actually overlaps into my current husband's Thomas divorce. Someone said that the betrayal of a parent must be the most painful for. Original poster. Original poster replied, "Thank you. I was such a daddy's girl before all of this happened too." There was one night where Chad and I were fighting prior to the divorce, and he balled his fist and lunged at me. In the last second decided to hit the wall next to my head instead of me. He knew his life would be over if he made a mark. I was texting my dad through the entire thing. He did nothing. Did not come over. Did not call Chad. Nothing. He says it's because I told him not to, but I was in a very thick trauma response at that moment. I was worried about Chad getting set off again, not my own safety. Trauma is such a liar. The next day, Chad took my dad to breakfast, told him his side of the story, and asked for forgiveness, which my dad gave him. Nobody asked for my forgiveness. Nobody even called to check on me or the kids. And the final detail that's worth noting, Chad and I were fighting about my brother. Chad didn't want him to come over to our house anymore because they legitimately hated each other. So my dad sided with Chad over his daughter and son. I do not know what Chad said to my dad at that breakfast, still to this day, but I know my dad knows my side of the story because I told him. No remorse. Commenter 2, not the whole. Protect your peace. But don't be afraid to enact vengeance, lol. You can always report their business to spark an investigation. Original poster replied, "It's obvious to everyone except him, unfortunately." I have since started a nonprofit, which is ironic because during my divorce, my dad told him and my mom that he wasn't running a charity, when my mom suggested that me and my kids live in one of his rental houses that needed work. I was willing to help fix it up, given my design background. I'm a personal trainer and nutrition coach, and started getting really annoyed that the people who most needed my services and knowledge could not afford the insane prices my gym set. I was charging $65 to $110 per hour at the gym I was working for. My nonprofit is now online, so I offer 3 workouts weekly, unlimited nutrition coaching, and book club-style life coaching for way less than the average, and work with people that need it but cannot afford it. We also have many other projects we are currently working on. All of this was sparked because of my dad, his insane treatment of me. My trauma therapist helping me iron out my feelings, and my mentor that made me believe this dream was possible. I'm focusing on living my best life, growing my nonprofit to help as many people as I possibly can. My life motto is, be who you needed when you were younger. I'm trying to be the person I wish I had during the hardest part of my life. It sucks that my dad is choosing not to be a part of it, but it's his choice. I told him what I need from him, and he hasn't done anything to move in that direction. But that's on him. I'm not angry anymore. I've forgiven everyone and are setting the necessary boundaries with them all. Chad and I still share custody of the kids, 50-50, although he asks me to take them a lot, so I doubt it's actually 50-50. As far as providing, my dad does not see paying child support as providing. He sees it as a handout. The fact that Chad pays me anything means he's providing, and Chad also gets the kids' things when they are with him. It would be a bloodbath if we went back to court, which Chad threatens all the time. Everyone would be subpoenaed, and it would effectively destroy my extended family. I will only push that button if Chad forces my hand. Additional information from Original Poster after reading about Chad paying child support. Original Poster replied, "So I've seen this comment a few times. Just to be clear, Chad does pay CS. He is frequently late, but he does pay it. The catch is, he owns his own company, and if you've ever done that before, you know you can do a lot of loopholes in paying yourself. During the divorce, I could only prove his income to be at the $80,000 mark. He tried to say it was $50,000. He earns a lot more than that. But because he pays his bills through his company, the money never enters his personal account and therefore doesn't count as income. At the time of our divorce, he was paying our $1,200 mortgage and putting the same amount in a TDA account weekly. My lawyer knew he made more than $80,000, but the legal battle would have taken years. Even our mediator said his books for his company were a mess. I willingly chose not to go to court and fight this because I just wanted the marriage to be over. I got a lump sum payment because I did not want alimony plus child support, and I was done. It was over a decade of the most insane, emotional, and verbal abuse, and I was a shell of my former person. I wanted to give my kids another option on how to live, even if that was only 50% of the time. I believe mine and my new husband's example will shine brighter in their lives than his will. It's already starting. Now, thanks to the parenting plan, I have a legally binding contract I can hold him to when he tries to sidestep or gaslight me. Our plan also has a clause that says, in the event that a decision cannot be reached, the decision will fall to the mother until mediation can be scheduled. The decision falls to me, and I leave it up to him to schedule mediation, which he knows I know he's doing shady stuff in his business. Unfortunately, I cannot afford to take him on legally. Not yet. If he decided to take me to court, I'm sure I would figure it out, but it's risky and time-consuming. I have thought about tipping off the IRS, but I'm waiting with that info in case he takes me to court. I will have his entire life and business audited, and since he works with my dad on a handshake agreement, no contract, no EIN, no trust account, my dad will be forced to show everything in discovery. And since I do have an EIN and trust account, it will be harder for him to see my assets. Update. Whoa, thanks for all the support, everyone. Turns out y'all were right. Here's an update. Then I'm going to have to stop updating on this and move on with my life. In the last few weeks, my mom's oldest sister passed away. She had been sick for a while, so this wasn't shocking news, but still sad. I called my mom to be polite and offer my condolences sinin didwas. I wasn't close with this particular aunt. I also made it clear I wouldn't bring up any of our drama and would only talk about it if she did. Well, as per usual, she used her sister's death to shame me, saying that in 10 years, this could be me, and I don't want our family to not be speaking to each other like this, or something along those lines. So, I restarted my boundary. Once they get out of business and stop communicating so friendly with my ex and show me some loyalty, then that won't be a problem, and we can work on our issues. She said she won't turn her back on her grandkids because he's the only way she sees them. I reminded her that that's only been a recent development and that she never set boundaries with him ever. In the same phone call, she told me she went to his house around Christmas time. He also shows up to my niece's birthday parties. Then she told me she's angry that I dated my new husband and got pregnant with my youngest without going to her for help because I was 34. My husband is incredibly supportive and loving, and the most amazing man I've ever known. She's literally mad that I'm able to take responsibility for my own choices and don't need to turn to her for every little issue. I honestly still don't understand that one. My dad has done absolutely nothing about his business with my ex. He is living off the money he's making with my ex, even though he calls it generational wealth. I don't think that phrase means what he thinks it means. My sister decided to send me endless texts that ended with her openly admitting she has nothing to be responsible for. She is a crying shoulder for my ex-husband and asked me if I felt sorry for him at Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Yes, she does know a lot of the things he did to me and my kids. Think verbal abuse, toxic masculinity, gaslighting, name-calling, financial abuse, etc. She also told me that my healing and growth is selfish because I'm not including her in it. I seriously wish I was making this up. The only successful conversation I had was with my younger brother, but even he isn't sure about my new husband, which is weird because they are so similar. Basically, he told me not to date anyone, and I dated my now husband, and it worked out, and he's mad about it. Again, I was 34, and he was 28. I don't know if they don't like that. I didn't take their advice, or if they don't like that it worked out for me, despite me not taking their advice. I wish I had a better explanation for this, but I just don't. I'm not sure where all this will go, but I'm holding to my boundaries and moving forward with some pretty big goals my new husband and I have for our nonprofit, which helps people in life transitions who don't have support. Lemon into lemonade. Thanks for the support. And I know this update is vague, but if I typed out the whole story, it would be a dissertation. It is so unbearably complicated and honestly confusing because of the delulu thinking of my toxic family. I haven't blocked anyone because I just can't bring myself to do that to my family, but I moved an hour away from them and only respond when I'm ready to. I will hold up my boundaries, but my focus is on my family and our new baby. I just found out I'm 5 weeks pregnant. It's sad that my parents and siblings are going to miss out on a relationship with my 2 youngest because they can't let go of the life I rejected. But I know I'm a cycle breaker, and with that comes being the villain. A title I will happily wear. Relevant comments, original poster. Replied on her father's certified public accountant, and he should see how much he is losing in the process. He has a certified public accountant. It's his brother-in-law. When I mentioned my nonprofit and how trust accounts work, my dad said, "That sounds illegal." All I said was I was putting my business into a trust to protect it and paying myself through the trust. This makes me think my uncle isn't the best, but who knows? My uncle is not my certified public accountant. Commenter 1. Honestly, your family sounds like a cult, and they are just mad you broke free from the cult and therefore their control. Time for absolute no contact with them and going to a good family lawyer in your area to petition for child support with proof of the fraud. Original poster replied, I said it feels like I left a cult or Scientology because my mom and sister keep tabs with me online since I use it to leverage my businesses and gossip to my brother about it. Update. Oh my ghost. One more update that I discovered in therapy. I know y'all will appreciate this. Charlotte, I'm Southern, and I love when you use your Southern accent. If you read any of these posts, please use it. While I was going through my divorce, my brother and his wife were renting a house from my dad. I was at their house one day. We used to be very close, and I noticed the house next door was getting ready for an estate sale. Since I know my dad likes buying houses in that neighborhood, I went to check it out. My dad has done rentals my entire life, so I'm pretty good at feeling out the bones of a house. Well, I told him and my mom about it and suggested he get it. Let me and my kids live there while I help him fix it up. It really just needed some painting and some minor kitchen modernizing. It's a 3B2BA and the same layout as my brother's house. With this plan, I could get out of his house because at the time I was living with them and it was tense for everyone. My mom seemed on board with the idea, but my dad rolled his eyes and said, I'm not running a charity. Obviously, I broke down crying. He apologized and said some excuse that I don't remember because it was complete crap. Well, I have recently realized while verbally processing in therapy that my idea is the exact same concept my ex presented to him. My dad fronts the money, my ex does the work, they split the profits 50-50. I wasn't even presenting to split the profits. I feel like my dad really missed a huge opportunity to help me start my own real estate hustle and teach me to do what he is doing. He could have helped me get back on my feet and set my kids up for life. Once this realization hit me, it was like I saw my dad in a completely different light. I don't even think he realizes how full of hot air he is. It seems they wanted me to be subservient and not to have independence. I think he thought if my life was as hard as possible, I would go back to my ex, and shame would have been lifted from my family, but I would have walked to hell and back before I did that. Anyway, this is a pretty good picture of the generational wealth my dad likes to talk about. He brags about getting into business with my ex to help his grandkids, but when presented with a way to help their mother, his daughter, now it's a charity. Make it make sense. Relevant comments. Original poster clarifies on her father and ex splitting the profits regarding the properties, such as selling or renting. They rent the properties mostly. They sell the ones they can't or don't want to rent. He doesn't live in them now, but he has in the past, long time ago. No business plan, no contract, no a limited liability company, just a handshake agreement. Ex is a home remodeler, stepped down from contractor because he hasn't taken the test. My ex became a home remodeler within our marriage. I was there for all of it. Every flip, every house, not to mention being raised by my dad to do the exact same things since he did them my entire life. I'm very familiar with home remodeling, flipping, and renting. Also, your point would make sense if your family was considered an investment, which I now know that how my dad sees it. At the time, my dad said he would help me. Actually, he said he was the only one helping me. So when I approached him with an idea, please remember, he's my father. buying a house, which he did end up buying, and showing me the same steps he showed. My ex would have been easy money for him to make, and he would have helped his daughter rebuild her life. I'm not saying he owes me anything, but as a parent myself, I don't think you can say, I'm for you and I'm the only one helping you, while refusing to help your daughter, who was a stay-at-home mom of 10 years, rebuild her life in a manner that would have been an easy fit for both of us. Also, we flipped our first home we bought together, and I designed all of it. When we sold it, we made over $40,000 profit. I'm going to be conservative and say we made $40,000, even though I think it was closer to $50,000, which we used as a down payment on our next house, which also sold for a major profit. Someone asked, how did Chad present this property business proposal to your father? Original poster replied, you're right. I don't know how my ex presented this idea. I mentioned this in another thread on the same topic. I asked my dad how Chad got him to make this deal because Chad wins more than he does. I asked him because I want that same negotiating power. He didn't have a good answer for this because on his end, it's not a great deal. My presentation was, he buys the house in his name only. Me and my 2 kids live there, and I work to flip the house with the exception of electrical and plumbing, which my dad and ex hire out for always due to liability. I know you don't know me, but I'm a damn good hustler. I have laid hardwood floors, baseboard, tile on floors, and backsplashes. Obviously I can paint, before you say it more complicated than blah blah blah. I have painted professionally on and off for a long time, for friends, myself, and various organizations, churches specifically. I've installed insulation, replaced various hardwares, doorknobs, cabinet pulls, and faucets, and actually fixed a non-working toilet. So when I say I've been paying attention, I damn mean it. I just don't have the certification behind me. At the time, my separate job was a personal trainer, which I am certified for, but like most gyms, they weren't paying me enough, and I needed something different. But my lawyer suggested I get a job to show I'm employable. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Professional Studies and a minor in marketing, which I do full-time now on top of running my nonprofit. I am the daughter my father raised, and if he had taken my offer, his rentals would be a fully functioning C Corps right now, and he would own a lot more than 50% of 6 properties. This is known because I know me. He doesn't. Fashion merchandising and home furnishings and a lot of business courses like econ and accounting. I also have a minor in marketing. These courses basically set me up for retail entrepreneurship. For my senior thesis, I had to make a very detailed business plan and present it to my professor like they were the bank.